Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. The blessing after the long struggle. I'm reading from Genesis 32 from verse 24 through to 30. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Let's look on a side note. The history of the nation of Israel goes all the way back to the three highly revered forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham's main wife was Sarah. Isaac's wife was Rebekah, and Jacob's second wife and his favorite was Rachel. God promised these three men that a great nation would come from them and their descendants would be like the stars in the sky. In order for this prophecy to come true, they had to have children. All three women struggled with infertility. Sarah did not have her one son, Isaac, until aged 90. A year before she had Isaac, she said, "After I have worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" In the case of Isaac, he was 40 years old when he got married to Rebekah, and the Bible said, Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The Lord answered his prayer, and they gave birth to the famous fraternal twins Esau and Jacob. But catch this. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth. 20 years of waiting before they had children. Rachel was the second of Jacob's two wives and his favorite. She could not have children, and one day she said to her husband in desperation, "Give me children or I will die." He answered her harshly from a place of frustration. "Am I in the place of God who has kept you from having children?" Quite some time passed until we read, God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and enabled her to conceive. She went on to have 2 sons. Why am I sharing this? God works with impossible situations to fulfill his purpose and in answer to prayers. The promise of a great nation was made to Abraham, repeated to Isaac, and further repeated to Jacob. But this infertility issue was a stumbling block. But this did not deter God from keeping his promise, which means God had to remove the infertility issue from each of these women. Surely you see where I'm going with this story. Nothing is impossible with God. There is absolutely no stumbling block in your human experiences that can stop God. Some women go through their whole lives not being able to have children because of infertility. These 3 women lived with it, but God. God had a promise on the books, and he was going to keep his promise regardless. Sarah had Isaac, Rebekah had Jacob and Esau, and Rachel had Joseph and Benjamin. Don't ever give up trusting God that he can do the impossible for you. Keep trusting him. Keep exercising faith. God specializes in the impossible. That was quite an aside, wasn't it? Now let us return to the text about Jacob. Jacob was facing a huge dilemma. God had told him to go back to the land of his birth, but there was the Esau factor, the brother whose birthright he had stolen many years ago. Now he hears that the brother is in fact coming towards him. Jacob is rich, my friend. Jacob is so rich beyond imagination. But he was facing this issue, and his riches could not help him. So after strategizing by protecting his immediate family, he was left alone the night before the big meeting, and Jacob had an encounter with God. This is his second encounter with God while on the road. It was when he from Esau and he had a dream. He woke up and acknowledged that God was there that night and he was not aware of it. This time, he's on the road heading back home and terrified, and this time he found himself wrestling with someone he doesn't even know. I cannot even fathom how two men would be wrestling through the night and nobody surrendered. What a brutal struggle that was, a struggle of determination. We know why. Jacob realized that it was God and he needed a special blessing from God. I will not let you go unless you bless me. In other words, I am facing a huge crisis and I need a blessing. I need for you to do something for me that will make things work out favorably. Poor Jacob, you say, right? It paid off. His name was changed to Israel because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Later on we read, then he blessed him there. Jacob named the place of the all-night wrestling encounter with God Peniel, because I saw God face to face. God blessed Jacob that night because Jacob fought for his blessing and because God had plans for him. You might not have an all-night encounter with God, but I want you to hear this. Whatever you might be dealing with in your life, wrestle with God. Contend with God. Pray unceasingly to God until he blesses you. I'm inviting you to have faith in God. Jacob fought God the whole night because of his faith, that God had to bless him, and God did. I know this might sound crazy, but I really believe this message is what you need to hear today. Don't give up on God. Don't lose hope in God. I will not stop praying God until you bless me. If you have been blessed by today's message, tell me about it in an email at friendofclyde@gmail.com.